OTA day, baby. Welcome in. It's the PHNXCardinals podcast presented by a couple of handsome men here. PHNX, it's your premier Arizona Cardinal podcast. Like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star wherever you get your programming. Johnny Venerable Bulbrock, fresh off the Cardinals practice facility. Got a bunch of takeaways, but I'm going to ask you first and foremost, because you sent me a text today, Bulbrock, that I thought was interesting. And, we like to complain about the state of the Cardinal quarterback group and, this, that, and the other. You told me that Clayton Tune was basically firmly entrenched as QB2 already. Can you confirm or deny this?
It certainly looks like it. There was no David Blau out there today. Obviously, this is voluntary OTAs, mandatories coming up soon in a week and a half out there at the facility in Tempe. But as far as who is taking the reps as QB2 behind Colt McCoy as QB1, getting tuned up. Clayton Tune out there taking snaps from the rookie center, John Gaines II. Yeah, why not? Absolutely looking good. And as far as what you want to hear, if you are if you're part of the Tune squad, Jonathan Gannon, he wanted us to ask one more question as far as the press corps went.
Okay.
I was able to get it in. I was just like, what do you like so far about this rookie quarterback? And he said he's not scared. He said he was trying to make some throws in some tight windows, and JG was like, it's pretty tight. And Tune himself is like, I got you, coach. I got you. I got those throws in my repertoire. And it's everything you want to hear. I mean, that's just straight pornography. If you're rooting for the rookie quarterback to maybe get some reps and solidify backup quarterback of this rebuilding roster.
Yeah, and you emphasize rebuild there, and I agree with you. Like, what's the point? I don't want to see David Blau play football for this team, especially when he's not going to have somebody like DeAndre Hopkins, right? I mean, the offensive line could be better, but it's not the same offense. So a lot of people who are like, well, he looked good under Cliff last year. It's not the Cliff Kingsbury offense. He's at, I think, starting point A or 1A with Clayton Tune and everybody. I don't think anybody has a leg up on anybody else outside of Colt McCoy has started games in this league. So you feel like he's the placeholder, right? He's QB1 right now as you await Kyler Murray. But then like Clayton Tune, I think significantly more upside than Jeff Driscoll and David Blau, because we know what those guys are. Now your concern is inexperience with, a rebuilding roster may not be a great recipe, but I love the idea of a guy who played a ton of snaps at the collegiate level, showed you a lot, right? Was drafted not with a throwaway pick, a 5th-round pick. Let him be quarterback 2 when the season starts. Let him learn from Colt McCoy, because I like the scenario. Hopefully things work out. Kyler Murray comes back sooner rather than later. Let Clayton Tune be QB2 behind K1 at some point. Because I really do feel like, and this is just probably my bias against Colt McCoy at this point. I feel like Colt McCoy's got a foot out the door. And that's good for him. He's earned it. Broadcasting career. I think he'll be on many national outlets. He's already doing some color commentary and some spring leagues. That's great. But the Cardinals have football games to play in August and September, and I've seen Colt McCoy. I know how that game is played. Clayton Tune, there's a mystique, there's a mystery about, okay, can this guy come in and be competent? I mean, Davis Mills 2 years ago, not last year, 2 years ago, Houston, 3rd-round pick, right? A lot of years and miles at Stanford. Played well for Houston, a bad Houston team. I think we could see something similar if they opt to pull the reins off here and let this kid play.
Yeah, I mean, you've got maybe kind of that restrictor plate that you can put in place that we've seen maybe that is more conducive to a rookie 5th-rounder playing significant snaps in his first year, right? I mean, you've got the veteran and Colt McCoy, who it would be tough, in my opinion, for Tune to hurdle McCoy, right?
No, but McCoy is known to go down.
Right, absolutely. A guy who took his lumps, and that's putting it nicely last year, where he had an MRI on his head. He had a neck issue. He had a calf issue. He had a throwing arm issue. I mean, it was a what's what as far as what Colt McCoy went through physically last year, and going into getting a little bit older. He's 37 years old. Here you've got a guy who was just ultra productive at Houston, throwing the football, not against premier talent. I think that's one of the strikes against Tune. And as far as, him, he has most of the throws in his that he's able to make, and then he's got the athleticism. And I think when you looked at a couple of the quarterbacks that this team was in, and you have it sourced, Johnny, that they were in on Joshua Dobbs, they're similar skill set. And if you look at the next wave of like kind of the quintessential backups, I think you're going to find guys like Dobbs, guys like Tune, that are able to kind of do it all. And once Kyler Murray comes back, I think that Tune could be certainly the backup of the future with maybe a higher end starting ability, right? To get in there and run this offense that Drew Petzing wants to install. That James Conner kind of gave us some insight today when I was talking to him about what it's going to look like. We've already been kind of putting out, a little feeling of what that offense is going to look like. And it's going to be more kind of run heavy, right? More run dominant offense than the air raid that we've been used to seeing under Cliff Kingsbury, which is another good thing for a guy like Clayton Tune.
Yeah, and 70 touchdowns in his last 2 years at Houston. He had been there for like 5 years. I'm not saying that he's ready plug and play, but I think it's naive to think that he can't beat out a Jeff Driscoll and David Blau to the point where those guys are obsolete, that you just get rid of them and then you just let the chips fall where they may. Colt McCoy, barring something unforeseen, another addition, which with Hopkins release doesn't seem likely now, is going to be your starter in September. But again, how many times did we watch games last year? It was like Colt McCoy goes down, Trace McSorley comes in. Colt McCoy is not practicing. Colt McCoy had an undisclosed injury that left him not throwing for part of the spring. So I know he got beat up. He's made his money in the NFL. Good for him. I think Colt McCoy is very much just like a little bit of a contingency plan for like Austin Ford and Gannon. They inherited Colt McCoy. He's on the roster. He was extended by Steve Keim last year. So everybody's just like, okay, he's just around, and I guess we'll give him first team reps. But even with the Cardinals potentially, and I emphasize the quotations here, tanking 2023, I think that you would be best served, assuming Kyler is behind schedule or November is a timeline. You got to give Clayton Tune, if he's competent, at least like a 4-game stretch. Give him a quarter of the season to go out there and compete. Show the fans something, show your coaching staff something that, okay, this is a guy that could potentially back up Kyler Murray next year. We've seen enough now. I think the preseason, even I would give him starting reps in the preseason with a lot of the starting players. I don't think we need to see much from Colt McCoy come August. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, and I almost want to like kind of cap the amount of games we're going to see Colt McCoy, regardless 100%. Of when Kyler Murray is going to come in. I'll cap it right here at 6, right? I think we can max out Colt McCoy this season at 6 games. And then if Kyler's not ready to come back.
That's a good over-under.
Right. I mean, would you put it at, if I said 5.5, what are you taking? Are you taking over?
I would take, we put the sweet spot on Kyler returning in like mid-October.
Right.
And that could be aggressive, maybe not. But that's like 6 games. So I think that's right on the money. 5.5, 6.5 is the sweet spot. But you hit the nail on the head. Like, how many games can Colt McCoy win you in those first 6 weeks? 1, 2 games max right now.
In 6 games in the last 2 years, he's 3-3. He's the cliche backup. He can win you 3 games. He can lose you 3 games. And the 3 games that he's won, he looks spectacular, right? He had the win at San Francisco. He had another win against Seattle, and then he had another win last season where he looked really, really solid. Forgive me. It was
LA Rams. Yeah, it was three divisional. Well, 2 years ago, in a span of 3 weeks, he went on the road twice in the NFC West and won. But that was with a roster that was pretty loaded at the time.
Not bad, right?
Hopkins, James Conner scoring 20 touchdowns.
Zach Ertz had a 2-tutty game in Seattle. I mean, you don't have
the
Zach
defense
Ertz
was
right
giving
now.
them a bunch of possessions. That Seattle game, they scored only twice. I mean, what Colt McCoy, I think I see where you're going with that, but like Colt McCoy, his arsenal is watered down considerably from what he was rolling with 2 years ago. And then last year, Cardinals got the Rams at the right time where they were basically kind of disheveled. They were playing better football at the end of the year. All that to say, 6 games of Colt McCoy, if he somehow went 3-3, that would be a modern miracle.
It would. So. It would. I think that as far as the days of him being a premium backup are probably over, right? But can he come in? Can he run the offense probably at the highest possible level relative to the current quarterback room, and also give you the ability to really kind of at least have kid gloves on dealing with Tune out of the gate. So he doesn't have to prepare to be the starter on the road going up against that ferocious Washington front seven week one. But with Blau out today, Tune was fully entrenched, I felt, as the backup quarterback, and then you had Colt McCoy there as your starting signal caller, throwing with the first team offense and taking snaps from your first team center. And it looks like it's going to be the man from Denmark and Hjalte Frodeholt. So Frodeholt looks like he has a stranglehold on that starting center position, to where, as far as on that depth chart, you've got Jonathan Gaines as your backup center. And so you got the two vets there. You got QB1 Colt. Well, Kyler comes back. You've got QB2, the rookie in Clayton Tune, and he's already working out with a future battery mate potentially in Gaines the second. So started to kind of see some where maybe first rounder Paris Johnson Jr. is going to see more and more reps, and it looks more and more like he's going to be playing a certain position come training camp in the start of the season. And we're starting to see what Zaven Collins' role is potentially going to be under Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rollis and this new look defense going forward as well.
Yeah, and I want to stick with Paris Johnson Jr. because you and I were texting. Bo gives me the skinny on the private text message thread. I'll keep between us, but basically, like, Paris Johnson Jr. has yet to take a snap at guard through OTAs, and I know they're OTAs, but I'm of the mindset I'll double and triple down on this. I think it'd be a huge egregious mistake now to move Paris Johnson Jr. He's played a whole collegiate year at a top 4 program at Ohio State, kicking ass and taking names at left tackle. Should have won the national championship. Should have beaten Georgia, right? Until Georgia took out Marvin Harrison Jr., future Cardinal. And now he's at OTAs and he's playing tackle, albeit right tackle. To move him to a position he hasn't played in about 2 years, I think would be a mistake. Even when you consider the miles and the experience of Kelvin Beachum and D.J. Humphries, like, it's not I don't care about those guys. Those are good players when they're healthy. Paris Johnson Jr., if we're talking like, who are the biggest commodities on the Cardinal roster? What's the biggest chunk of gold that they have right now? It's the big man that was selected 6th overall. I care about his development. I care about his progression to reaching Pro Bowl status more than anybody else right now, selfishly, right? You got older players. You got players that are overpaid. You got players that are TBD, right? We love Trey McBride. We love Majay. We love Cameron. We don't know yet. Paris Johnson Jr. was the first pick of this new regime. And again, like, if they haven't played guard, so be it. But when you text me and you keep telling me, like, Paris is a tackle, don't you feel like if they were going to put him at guard, they would just bite the bullet? I mean, there's minimal contact right now. They're not working on pad to pad. They're working on fundamentals. This is fundamental play, tackle play, offensive line play. If they were going to put him at guard, you would have had to rip the Band-Aid off already.
I completely agree. And I was wrong, because when we made our predictions over 2 weeks ago, I had him sliding in and playing right guard, the position that he might be. He has more reps, more snaps in his collegiate career than he did. Obviously, he had left tackle snaps last season, but he played on the right side at the guard position. But to your point, I mean, I think just preparing for guys to be coming it off the edge and dealing with that type of physicality, that sort of athleticism right out of the gates, and just having to get that technique down, regardless of which side of the line's on, I think it's invaluable at this point. If you're willing to, kind of throw him to the flames this early in his career, you can respect that, because as long as he's got the, correct coaching and he's not developing bad habits, it's a positive for him. Other than that, if he's going out and he's a turnstile and Chase Young is just running through him like he's water, that's a problem. But if he's, as long as he's not get out there and laundry's not getting thrown at him every other down because he's jumping off sides or false starting, and he's not, just easy cakewalk to the quarterback for opposing defenses, I think that it's invaluable what he's getting to potentially start at the tackle position to start his career.
And I don't think it's an indictment of him to say, I don't want him to play guard. And the position versatility, when we were doing our draft breakdowns, Bo, and I did the video on our tackles, and we had talked about Skoronski and Darnell Wright and some of these other players. The consensus on Paris Johnson Jr. was he can play inside, but why would you do that when he is a plug and play tackle? Whereas like Skoronski, the argument was, well, he can never be a plus tackle, but put him at guard, he could be an all-pro, right? And darn all right, they're like, oh, maybe he can only play right tackle. The consensus on Paris Johnson Jr. was, don't screw around if you don't have to. Put him at tackle, left or right tackle. He's going to be a star there. For the Cardinals, who are the quintessential team to get the top pick next year, it's coincidental because they never have tackle depth. They suddenly do now. But isn't it funny that people are like, well, wait a minute. The Cardinals have good tackle depth. You just got to kick Paris Johnson Jr. inside. It's like, come on, guys. What are we doing screwing around? There's a really good chance Beachum and Humphries aren't even on the team next year. Do not block this young man. He's got experience, right? He played it at the highest level possible. It's not like our guy, Clayton Tune, playing at Houston, trying to come in and start in the this guy was the left tackle for Ohio State, playing the best teams in the conference, playing the best teams in college football. And now he's going to the team with the lowest win-loss total in the NFL projected for 2023. And you want to block him? And he's the first pick of this regime. That's such ass backwards thinking to, I think, what they've done this entire offseason, which is about competition and young guys. I love Kelvin Beachum. Get him out of here. He's not part of this team's future. I don't care if he, for a half second, can block Colt McCoy longer week one. That doesn't help the Cardinals long term. All the arguments we're seeing right now about you got to tank for 2023, you got to think big picture. You're not thinking big picture if you're not putting Paris Johnson Jr. at tackle week one. Well, that's my opinion.
Regardless if you're tanking or not, you've got to be able to protect your players. And like if you have liabilities, especially at those positions, I mean, those are so important. If you have somebody that can't hang at the NFL level at the left or right tackle position, it puts people in harm's way. And I don't care if you're playing the win games or not playing the win games, you can't put in, as much as you pay any quarterback from your starter to your backup, you can't put anybody in that position to take that hit. You can't pay a running back and James Conner the amount of money if he's just going to have an unblocked, defender come at him. It's just mistakes get people hurt. And I don't.
Don't you feel like they were going to take him third overall? No, like if you're taking somebody third overall.
No, my point is if he's the best option, then he should play. And I think that he's going to be, just because it's such a position where the wear and tear adds up. And when you start to look at, I mean, it's great to have guys like D.J. Humphries, who once again wasn't out on the practice field today. He was supposed to meet with the media. We didn't even talk to D.J. Humphries because I'm sure the question would be, what's your health right now? What's your status right now? And I don't think he could give us a straight answer. So we haven't seen Kelvin Beachum for the most part. You've got two guys that I think that you can say, hey, we got good depth here. We've got good leadership from those guys. We've got guys that we think that can help, mentor these players. But as far as, are they going to be blocking guys from their ability to play snaps for this team? I don't think that they will. I mean, DJ is making the type of money where it could become an issue, but he's got to get to a point physically where he's ready to play himself. Where I think like Beach, I'm starting to think I'm going to start to throw him in the group of guys like Dennis Daly, Elijah Wilkinson, guys who are on this roster for depth across the line. Like, it's no longer like, hey, there's your right tackle. I really think Paris Johnson Jr., the thought process right now is he's going to be your starting right tackle.
Yeah, and Libertarian Sasquatch completely agree. You can either play or you can't. And if you're taking a guy, I'm just going to assume that Paris Johnson Jr. was the third overall pick, because they were going to take him third overall had they not traded down. They weren't going to take they were going to take Paris Johnson Jr. over Will Anderson Jr., which tells me this
10 pick regardless. He's the sixth overall pick. I mean, that's a big pick.
He was going to be the first non-quarterback in this draft. I'm not playing him at guard year one. I'm not screwing around with that. Like Skoronski went where Skoronski was supposed to go. Outside, do you go right outside the top 10 or right
11,
outside?
Right?
Yeah. Like that's where everybody projected him, because he's got short baby arms and he played at Northwestern, right? And people think he's a guard, right? Maybe he can play T-Rex arms at right tackle. Paris Johnson Jr. is a blue chip tackle. I don't know what that is. That's a little concerning.
He's trying to get his arm. He's trying to stay inside defender.
I see what you're doing. To me, it's, if we're paying $20+ million to tell Dhop, go away, right? If we're iffy on Kyler Murray this year participating, if you're talking about Caleb Williams, I do not want to see a single practice rep wasted on Paris Johnson's future at a position he is not going to play. It's what the Cardinals should have done from day one with guys like Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons. We're going to talk about that here in a second.
I mean,
but first,
Isaiah, real quick. Isaiah, like, I think that's the cautionary tale, right? I mean, remember how they operated with kid gloves on him, and it was
do I remember? It is embedded into my brain on doubling down with Hassan Reddick. The prior regime were the poster children for saying, you like this position? You played it well at the collegiate level? We're going to switch it up against the best in the world, right? Speaking of the best in the world, it's BetMGM, folks. We've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We're using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks. We got special offers for our listeners every week, including Mañana. Hello, we're going to be at the BetMGM Sportsbook on the Great Lawn at State Farm Stadium. And guess what? Every Saturday and Wednesday, by the way, you can claim your bonus bet on the house, but be sure, claim it within and use it within 72 hours or it expires. So do not wait. You can use those sweet, sweet bonus bets on any sports wager. And again, tomorrow, mañana, Friday night, the Knockout Nights Cornhole League, first Friday of every month. Specials, giveaways, BetMGM prizes. I mentioned my guy, Bo Brock, and I will be there at BetMGM, as well as the entirety of the PHNX crew. Come out and get that phone, get that smart device going with BetMGM, that BetMGM app. Use that bonus code PHNX. There's a few different offers depending on where you live, but for our Arizona audience, you will get up to $100 in bonus bets on your first wager with BetMGM. Make sure you're using that sweet, sweet bonus code PHNX. Check out the show notes for full details. And now listen to our guy, Shane Diefenbach, talk about it in the disclaimer.
Disclaimer, 21 plus to wager. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in Washington, D.C., Mississippi, Nevada, New York, and Ontario. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369, New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, Arizona. 1-800-522-4700, Kansas, Nevada. 1-800-327-5050, Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF, Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help, Michigan.
He's the voice of an angel, doesn't he? Shane Diefenbach. I was just making sure I was keeping up to date, following our friends over at Four Peaks Brew on Instagram, because right now they've got an incredible contest going on, sweepstakes, where you can win yourself 4 tickets to an upcoming Arizona Diamondbacks game. The D-backs just walked off the Rockies for a sweep. They're heating up. Why not get yourself 4 free tickets to a game plus D-bucks? So it's on Four Peaks when you get there to Chase Field and you're spending those D-bucks at the Four Peaks tap room. You're out there getting that food on Four Peaks. Sign up. The link's in the bio. Got to follow them, though, on IG at Four Peaks Brew, also at Four Peaks Pub on Twitter. Great follow to keep up with Arizona's premium craft brewery, Four Peaks. Of course, they got all the great beers there. You got Kilt Lifter, the flagship. They got the bourbon aged barrel Kilt Lifter, which is unbelievably smooth. So good. Plus, they got the #1 wheat beer in all of the state of Arizona, the Wow Wheat. Can't go wrong there. You're an IPA person, they got a plethora of IPAs for you out there. They got the Staycation IPA. Why not get in on that? You got to be 21 years or older, but of course, you got to do it responsibly. Do it at Four Peaks if you're going to do it anywhere else.
Good comment here in the chat. Has Kyler been out of practices? I know he can't do anything, but it would be nice for him to be there as a leader of the team. Bo, you're there every day. What's the good word with K1?
K1 was out there today. He was standing behind the QBs as Clayton Tune and Colt McCoy and Jeff Driscoll were dropping back and throwing passes. There was Kyler Murray standing there with offensive coordinator Drew Petzing and hanging out, still behind the scenes. And you know what? James Conner was talking today, and James Conner was asked about just the presence of Kyler Murray at practice. And this is what James Conner said about Kyler.
Man, it means everything. He's been here. He's been the first one in the building. Been here after everybody goes, and just I got to spend a lot of time with him, during these OTA periods, and just seeing how he's working. You can tell he's really, really locked in. How much he's itching to get back out there. He's behind the huddles, watching every play. So really locked in and really excited for his return and just his whole process.
I thought he only plays video games. I thought he wasn't a good leader.
He loves the bits. He loves not coming out during his birthday party. He's a big Fortnite.
First in, last out. That doesn't fit the narrative.
He's going to eat himself out of the league after this injury. All the narrative, all the headlines. Listen, James Conner, he echoes what he was telling you and I during Super Bowl week on Radio Row. That Kyler is out for redemption, if you can call it that. He just wants to prove everybody wrong. And I think I think he's got the right staff to be behind him. Everybody on this staff, and then I would include Kyler Murray, they have big chips on their shoulder. Gannon's been doubted. Kyler Murray's been doubted now. Nick Rallis has been doubted. Why didn't you take the Philly defensive coordinator job? Drew Petzing's been doubted. If you look up his history, his whole career, Monty Ossenford was the second line for this job, and got it, was the runner-up, and then got it. So I think this entire staff, this grouping, is really going to work well together because of their mindset to be able to come out and prove everybody else wrong. And I think winning's a byproduct of that. Everybody looks at teams like New England historically, like that's how they've done it. It's just go out there, bulletin board material. Whereas like the Kingsbury Cardinals, it was like, can we be sexy? Can we be fun? And there was no organic like will to win outside of
too cool.
Right. Outside of the flash in the pan with Watt, when he tried to garner that out of this team, and it just, Watt alone could not do it. And now the infrastructure with the staff and Kyler Murray's buy-in, you just can't put a price on it.
This team, we've talked a lot this week about, its ability or inability to compete in the 2023 season. And we throw the word tank around, right?
Yeah.
But as far as the team itself, like they can separate, what we're saying, what the national media is saying, what everybody's saying about this organization right now and where it's going or where it's not going next season. Like James Conner, Jonathan Gannon, like that's falling on deaf ears with those guys. They are hyper focused on what their job is. Now are they going to be able to compete week in and week out? Are they going to be able to kind of contend with the Niners, the Eagles of the world, the true teams that are just built to compete right now? That remains to be seen. Like, are they going to be able to surprise people? You hope so, but as far as what they've been dealt roster wise, we'll see, but they're not listening to that. And that's what you need to know, right? You've got Monty Ossenfort doing his job, right? He's doing his job in the front office and preparing this team for sustained success, right? And then you've got the team that's preparing to fight, every week in and week out, compete for jobs. And that's what you need, right? You need the roster to have that unshakable faith that, they're going to win their job. And I like that. I like what I heard from JG. I like what I heard from James Conner today. I mean, you talk about the stark differences between where the organization was last year and where it is now. I mean, I'm standing out there, I'm watching the Cardinals run 11 on 11s today, and who walks up next to me, and he took his time throughout the entire media that was out there at practice day, was general manager Monty Ossenfort. And he was shot the shit with me and was asking, how we were doing, and he thanked everybody for their coverage of this team. And it's like, I'll tell you what, that never happened in the 10 years under the previous general manager.
Steve Keim never came up to you and talked to you about this, and it's not the squad.
I would never ask for that. But they do things right, from the team building aspect to like, nobody needs to take care of the media members. I'm sure like you don't get that nearly at the majority of the 32 NFL franchises. But I think I really get the sense, we haven't seen Monty Ossenfort's Cardinals teams play it down, or Jonathan Gannon's Cardinals teams play it down. But at this point in their regime, like, I really get the sense that these guys get it.
Character counts. Brian in the chat, no Cam Cupcake. I mean, it's the opposite of that. Now, is it as talented as last year? No, but how many guys just didn't practice? How many guys weren't participating? Bo and I were at, what was it, the red and white practice last year? And just Frank, that was one of the biggest letdowns of the preseason. Yeah, they didn't have anybody ready to go. Those, the poor fans in the Red Sea came out and supported this team, and all the heavy hitters, they were just kind of standing around. Some people weren't even dressed. Some people weren't even out there. And it was a byproduct. Country club training camp last year. This year,
he said today, he said, how you get better at football? You play football.
Yeah, you practice, right?
Yeah.
You practice and you play. And speaking of practice, it looks like Zaven Collins, we mentioned positional changes, is practicing a new position. And I'm going to go on a limb and say it's his permanent position now, Bo. You keep me honest here.
Yeah.
Zaven Collins, this entirety of the offseason, has been playing edge rusher, outside linebacker, defensive end, if you will. I don't think he's going to play linebacker anymore.
Right.
His your white linebacker role, I think that's done. Just for the same point of Paris Johnson Jr., why would you take this guy who's got first-round talent, was a first-round pick, and make him do 10 different things when you want him to just try to be good to great at one thing? And I think they've looked at his skill set. Austin Ford's watched the tape. They've seen him in person. They see how he moves in space. And they are saying Gannon's a defensive savant. Nick Rallis is a defensive savant. They're saying, we think this guy can be a big-time edge rusher, defensive end. Yes or no? You believe that's true or false, Bo Brock?
I believe, what my eyes are telling me, that
yeah,
I think you're correct in your assessment of where he's primarily going to play. Now, I had asked JG after practice today about Zaven Collins and, how he's coming as a pass rusher and playing off the edge more so than he ever has. And this is what JG told me.
Yeah, versatile player, obviously, with Zaven. We're still kind of bouncing around different spots. He's been playing that spot for us that you see right now, but he's extremely intelligent, so you can do a lot of different things with him because he can handle it mentally. And I like his skill set. He's a big, strong, explosive, person. So, it's just like all of our players. We'll try to put him in as many spots that he's comfortable with, and for him to produce on the field for us and help us win.
He's a big, strong, explosive person, but he's versatile too.
But that's how people describe me.
Right, the big, strong, explosive Johnny Venerable. No, I mean, as far as that's an edge rusher, right? That seems like an edge rusher.
Not a off-ball linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to, if they play like a 4-3, maybe he could play the outside linebacker spot. But I think he's primarily going to be a guy that's getting after the passer. He was working out with former Arizona State defensive coach, now Cardinals offensive outside linebackers coach, pass rushers coach, Rob Rodriguez today on the side. He was just getting a one-on-one treatment, and they were really trying to get him up to speed to be a pass rusher. And, you might love his versatility, but as far as, where he could potentially thrive for this team at his size, at 6'5", 260 plus, with his bend and his athleticism, it's a pretty thin crop of players that can play what JG wants out of those pass rushers.
Yeah, and I think I've used this comparison before. There was a player that was drafted by the Detroit Lions, Kyle Van Noy, and I think they tried him at linebacker first, like stand up 4-3 linebacker, and then he gets traded to New England. And New England puts him, moves him all over the place, but he really settled in nicely as an outside linebacker pass rusher. And he's had a cup of coffee in the career, and you would hope Zaven can have more, production than Kyle Van Noy. But that's kind of where I think this is solidifying, is that can we get 7-8 sacks out of this kid and build off of that? Because here's what we know about the outside linebacker position for the Cardinals is we like the talent there. It's not like defensive tackle. Where be frank here, there's just not a lot of talent in that group. There's a lot of guys who should not be starting that are going to start. And then there's some backups who probably wouldn't be on a lot of rosters in the NFL. It's a group that they haven't been able to invest talent in. Whereas pass rusher, they've got Majay, they've got Cameron Thomas, they've got, Zach Allen, or not Zach Allen.
Cameron Thomas.
Cameron Thomas. They've got these guys now where you're like, okay, I can see it. I can see it coming to fruition. These guys were high picks for a reason.
Yeah.
Now Gannon is going to hopefully make them a Hassan Reddick 2.0 scenario. BJ Ojulari, who I know we're going to talk about. So I am optimistic. The Cardinals really just need, of this group of 4 or 5 guys, they just need 1 to 2 to hit. And then they'll put themselves in a position where that's a sure thing going into next year. What if you turn around and Zaven Collins and BJ Ojulari are your pass rushers and it's week 16, 17, they're having a sneaky good year. You feel much better about that group. Whereas, some of these other position groups, I'm not going to say they're hopeless, but it's can we, for the life of us, bail water until 2024?
Yeah.
I don't look at pass rusher like that.
But you can pour one out for the days of Zaven Collins being in the middle of that defense, being 100%. That Mike linebacker. It's over.
100%.
That's dead.
God, Kime was shooting bullets so hard toward the end. Every move he made, every button he pressed was just the complete wrong decision. Hey, Steve, that's just whatever you're thinking is wrong. It's completely opposite of what we should. Isaiah Simmons as a box linebacker, never.
Right.
Never.
And look, Isaiah, I saw him working in coverage quite a bit today. And, I think slot corner continues to be I know that's not what people want to hear, but that's going to be, he's going to be your hybrid to where he's going to be the middle to back, where if Zaven even sniffs the middle, it's going to be middle to front. Right. And he's going to be a guy that's going to be coming off the edge, pass rush linebacker or defensive end. Yeah, I think that there are guys that Gannon and Rollis are very intrigued with their size and their athleticism, and maybe if it can Cameron Thomas, Zaven Collins, B.J. Ujulari, and maybe Majay Sanders, you can say that's the quartet right there that they're going to work with.
Great, it's a great foursome, and I
Yeah.
can tell you, the only one that they not that they don't feel invested in the other guys, but they stuck their name and their resume with B.J. Ojulari. He was a draft pick of this regime, right? Whereas the rest of these guys were inherited. So this year, and this is, I think, going to be the case for a lot of these guys, it's like, what can we be mad scientists? What can we come out of the lab with these guys? We don't have to have a definitive opinion one way or the other, but like 2024, I need to know what Zaven Collins most likely is. I need to know, can Rondell Moore play, or is he just a gadget guy? So then you have clarity. They don't have a lot of clarity at too many positions before they go into what will be, I think, the most pivotal offseason in decades for this franchise, 2024, when you're equipped with $100 million in cap space and a ton of draft capital early in the draft with blue chips everywhere. You need to try everything. And so slot corner and Isaiah Simmons is not something I want to hear Bo Brock say. But if they feel like they want to try it in lieu of a third safety, then let them try it. But you got to check that box, I guess.
What who's this saying it? Is it Shear saying it, asking about Simmons? Is he going to play? Has he been playing linebacker, nickel? Yeah, he's out there in nickel packages for sure.
Yeah.
Trying to find a spot for him in their base defense. I haven't seen a whole lot of Isaiah Simmons in their base, but they go nickel, penny. He's one of those guys that I think they trust his coverage ability, and that he can play that hybrid to what you're saying, like a third safety or a nickel corner or a slot, whatever it may be, with the upside, the tackling upside, to play sideline to sideline like a linebacker. So we'll see how it continues to materialize. I know Rollis had some comments on Arizona Sports yesterday about Simmons and his ability to pick up, what they're putting down defensively, and how he's very encouraged by Isaiah. So that's at least the update on those guys. I don't know if we mentioned Froholtz, the center guy, and there was no Kazir White today at practice, so mainly running the middle of that defense. That Mike linebacker spot was Josh Woods, who's been primarily a special team guy, but he's somebody that's kind of emerged as one of the leaders as far as this changeover, this roster.
Yeah, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, did he get a 2-year deal, albeit a modest 2-year deal? Did they sign him for 2 seasons at like the vet minimum? I know you could move off of him, but if you can find it on PHNX Sports, I highly recommend checking out our interview with Josh Woods.
Yeah,
super down to earth human being, and it's the kind of person. I mean, like these I don't know what word I'm trying to use, but the guys that come from historically 4-3 defenses like JG and company, these architects of 4-3 defenses, their linebacking core are 5'11", 6'1" guys who are afterthoughts, undrafted, late round picks, like a Kazir White, like a TJ Edwards that he had in Philadelphia. That's why they signed Josh Woods, and he came on this show and said, I've been a special teamer. I was in Detroit. Obviously, Dave Sears was familiar with him there, Cardinals' new, assistant GM. But now it's like, it would not surprise me at all if this kid comes out week 1 and is like a sub starter. Wouldn't it be something if that kid's playing more snaps than Isaiah Simmons at the end of the year because they knew his role?
Yeah. It'd be wild. I mean, it's just the grasp of the defense and what your role is on a down-to-down basis. That's going to be important. I see Connor in a question about Michael Wilson. We'll get to the receiving core because JG not only talked about D-Hop, but the wide receivers now left on the Arizona Cardinals roster. B.J. Ujulari, just a quick update as far as the second-round pick. And I've talked, our guy Howard Balzer is just dialed in as far as this stuff goes. And he said that as far as second-round picks, there's only 7 that have been signed in the NFL right now. And the second round pick, where things kind of get sticky, especially at this point in the offseason and signing contracts with the CBA that was signed years ago, there's a little bit of guaranteed money left over for second round picks. And that becomes kind of a sticking point. And you have to start to see the dominoes fall as far as where the guys are slotted and what guaranteed money is going to go to them. I mean, the guaranteed money for the most part for the first rounders is accounted for, and that's why it's easy to get them taken care of, and then the guys beyond the second round a little easier because there's not a whole lot of guaranteed money that they're dealing with. They can just put their name on a dotted line and sign a pretty standard rookie contract. So Ujulari not signed yet, but that's not why he wasn't practicing today. Gannon said he's nicked up. He's just dealing just with a couple, lingering injuries. But he was out there just kind of on the practice field observing in uniform. So was Garrett Williams, who continues to rehab the torn ACL that he had, third round cornerback out of Syracuse. So that's the latest on the second and third picks of Monty Ossenfort's inaugural Cardinals draft.
Yeah, not nicked up and out there looking pretty strong is Michael Wilson. I'm ready to eat all the crow on that. But first, I want to tell you guys about Octane Raceway in Maverick. They had a banner weekend during Memorial Day. If you guys checked it out, I'm very envious. It sounds fantastic, but there's still time. Summer engineering camp for little guys and gals. They're partnering with Engineering for Kids. Love that. Ages 7 to 15. Thinking about signing my 8-year-old up for it. But regardless, we're going to go head out there May 30th through August 4th. So it's in vogue right now. Free summer bowling all summer. Kids bowl for free program. You love to see it grow the game. Children 15 and under are eligible for 2 free games every single day. Love our friends at Octane Raceway in Maverick. You should too. Book some fun this spring, this summer at Octane Raceway in Maverick. Kart racing, virtual reality, laser tag, axe throwing, bowling, arcade, great food and drinks, tons of different events throughout the summer. Check out octaneraceway.com and maverick.com, Bo, to learn more.
You got to learn more about Shady Rays. We're protecting my eyes out there at OTAs today under the sun, just beating down on me. I didn't have to think twice about the protection of my eyes because I was looking good in my Shady Rays, and I knew that my eyes were going to be protected by those premium polarized sunglasses. Unreal what Shady Rays is doing. You got to go take advantage of the best deal of the season. How about 50% off 2 or more pairs of Shady Rays at shadyrays.com? They're built to last. And you take a look at, what they've got there. They've got the impact resistant construction, that durability that you want. You can go buy some flimsy boutique sunglasses, but here's the thing. You drop them, they're probably done, and you're not going to be able to send them back to Shady Rays. No question. They got that advanced lens technology. They've got the live hard protection for guys like Johnny, who's diving into his backyard pool with his Shady Rays on. His kids are knocking them off. His dog's jumping them up on him and knocking them to the ground. You don't have to think twice about it because you got that live hard protection. Why don't you get in on Shady Rays right now and save some money by doing so? Go to shadyrays.com, get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The sunglasses rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people. shadyrays.com.
So I was a skeptic of Michael Wilson during draft weekend. It was probably, nothing against the person, my least favorite pick, because it was a top 100 pick on a guy who had been injured, and he hasn't played a down of NFL snaps yet. He's out there running around in shorts and a t-shirt. Thus far, I am dead wrong and could not be more happy about the development of the ex-Stanford wide receiver. Connor in the chat, do you guys want to see Michael Wilson play week 1? Brother, I'm ready for it right now. We had Sam Monson on a Pro Football Focus yesterday, and it's a guy who runs their entire NFL department there. Scouting, draft, regular season. He said that basically Michael Wilson is going to be an impact player at this level, going to be a better pro player than a collegiate player. And I mean, we love everybody during draft weekend. We talk them up. You say this, that, and the other. But it's like, we know when guys can play and when they can't, when you get into the summer and camp and everything, and who's popping, right? Tyrann Mathieu, once upon a time, looked unbelievable. John Brown, David Johnson, the great players look great early. That's not to say guys can't be late bloomers. But everything you see, read, and hear about this kid out of Stanford, and now suddenly they have this opening opposite Hollywood Brown, and it's like, my body is ready for Michael Wilson to come out and have the most under-the-radar great season for a third-round pick that this franchise desperately needs, Bo Brock. Tell me I'm crazy.
No, I don't think you are. And we talked to Jalin Thomas today, and he talked about his workout partner Budda, but also and we don't have this, but you can find it on my Twitter where he didn't even know It's like, is Michael Wilson number 14? Is that the guy? Yeah, he's legit. He's legit.
Yeah.
He's a guy that's standing out at practice. He's out there running routes, and you know what Monson was saying, what we've been saying since they drafted him. Like, if this is a guy that can stay healthy, that's the biggest issue. That's the biggest hurdle. Every year at Stanford, it was Wilson's inability to get on the playing field, but it's also he's not dealing with ligament issues. He didn't have knee issues. He had a broken collarbone, and I think it was another break before that. It wasn't. Yeah. So, you know, Michael Wilson, if he can get blessed by not catching the injury bug, it's somebody that just by staying on the field, he's going to create opportunities for himself. And like you point out all the time, Drew Petzing and that Cleveland Browns offense last year, there was a lot of all those wide receivers were all over 6'1". And when you look at DeAndre Hopkins exiting, you've got Hollywood Brown, who's probably the only guy that you could probably Sharpie into this wide receiver starting lineup, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, I think that they're going to maybe look at some of these bigger bodied wide receivers to take the other two roles. You know, I think, you know, whether Hollywood's in the X or the Z, whatever one's not occupied by Marquise Hollywood Brown is going to be an opportunity for Michael Wilson and Zach Pascal, and then you got guys like Greg Dortch and Rondell Moore vying for those slot spots. But Pascal's also in the conversation for slot. Yeah,
and Greg Dortch plays bigger than his size, and he's also returning punts. Like Greg Dortch is going to get plenty of touches, plenty of play on this team. He does have everything right, all the little stuff right. This is not going to be we're not getting Rondell Moore each and every show, but this happens to be one of those days. If Rondell Moore has two big bugaboos right now, three, if you count all three, he's undersized, he's been hurt, and he wasn't drafted by this regime. Rondell Moore needs his best training camp today, and that might be a non-hot take. Well, of course he does, Johnny, but I feel like Rondell Moore, it would not surprise me at all if he's gone after this season, right? It would not surprise anybody if this is Rondell Moore's last season with the Arizona Cardinals, whether he's cut, whether he's traded, traded for pennies on the dollar. He was a second round pick over Creed Humphries and has only played 2 seasons in Arizona, but his style of play, for lack of a better term, is just the complete opposite of what this offense wants to be. This offense wants to be, as you mentioned, big, physical, imposing wideouts that hopefully can stay healthy. I mean, Amari Cooper, great year last year with Drew Petzing. They had Donovan Peoples-Jones, who was a 7th-round pick out of Michigan. Fantastic, right? They had the big tight end, David Njoku. That's what they want. Well, Michael Wilson and Trey McBride and Zach Ertz, but the two young players, they fit the bill. Trey McBride's a big dude, right? He's going to play. I think he's going to have his best career year in some time. And then Michael Wilson, 6'2". And if this, I kind of probably buried the lead when Hopkins, they released him. Maybe they released him because they know they have something here. Maybe they were like, we got to get this guy opportunities. It's the argument I'm making for Paris Johnson to play over some of these veterans. It's like, what are you waiting for with a lot of these instances? So I love that he's out there making plays. I'm not going to write him in yet for the Hall of Fame, but Steve Keim did so many things wrong. His draft history for wideouts is so bad. Not only the players he picked, but the players he passed on when he took those wideouts. We said it on draft weekend. I'll repeat it now, Bo. Wouldn't it be something if Austin Ford goes like 1 for 1 in his first draft when Steve Keim was over so many times? It would be laughable if we didn't cry first.
Well, and also, we were talking to James Conner today, and I straight up asked him, and I know we have this clip where, about this offense. I was like, Petzing comes from Cleveland, where you're watching a lot of Cleveland Browns football and tape. And I believe we have it. There it is. It's basically talking about Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb there. Here's what James Conner had to say about what kind of offensive the Cardinals have been looking at.
Yeah, we've been seeing some Cleveland film and with Chubb and Hunt. Those are talented guys, but it's exciting seeing the film and watching some of those guys get the lanes and running 10, 15 yards downfield sometimes untouched. Yeah, it's exciting. I believe I'm a talented back, and it's going to be a big year.
Now, the reason I brought this up is you're not going to get 10, 15 yards down the field when you have guys who are 5'7", 5'8", 5'9" blocking for you. It's going to be an important role for these Cardinals wide receivers to pick up their defender in the blocking game. It's exciting to think about that they're going to be more run heavy and they're going to emphasize that, but also there's going to be a big part of the receivers being physical and having the ability to be physical downfield. So, obviously a lot of work comes from the offensive line, but the wide receivers too, that's going to be huge.
Well, and DeAndre Hopkins, as you mentioned, no longer on the team, and you had a chance to speak with JG, who was very blunt on his take on DeAndre Hopkins no longer with the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, Gannon was asked about D-Hop, and this is what he had to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's really no big deal to me. We're operating on the premise that he was going to be here, and now we're not. So we're moving on. Yeah, it's just, all the factors that were in play. We just felt that it was the best thing for the team to, play with who we have.
Liar. Oh, man. I love you, JG. It was not the intent on him being on the team. No. We asked him at the combine. Is D-Hop playing on the team? We don't really know.
Yeah, we'll see.
Really know. We'll see.
Didn't he say that? We'll see. That's a direct quote talking about Rondell Moore. He'll always be the second best Moore in the Valley because number one on the Moore rankings is Moore Furniture. Can't get better than what they've got over there. Moore Furniture, their Memorial Day sale continues, Johnny. Take advantage of that white glove delivery. Don't move a muscle. The only thing you have to do is run that chip over the or put in your credit card details at morefurniture.com. Sure. Purchase that great furniture, get that white gut delivery, and get it set up in your apartment, your condo, your house. Get in on More Furniture right now. Take advantage of that white glove delivery, whether it's for your living room, your dining room, your kids' room, your bedroom, your office, your entertainment center. They got something for you. Looks great. How about this chair I'm sitting in right now? Comfortable.
I need it.
More Furniture. That's where you can find it. Morefurniture.com. Save big on the best furniture in the Valley when you head over to morefurniture.com.
I'm sitting on a Target chair. I need a bachiotomy. I need some more furniture in my life immediately. We'll put a bow on this OTA show here on a Thursday. How about Budda Baker? What did Jonathan Gannon and, more importantly, let's start with this, Jalin Thomas have to say about his Instagram bro? Their workouts have been legendary this offseason. Did Jalin Thomas say anything about Budda Baker, Bo?
Absolutely, yeah. He was asked about it. He alluded to it, and then we just straight up asked him about, what was it like, working out with Budda while all this is going, all this noise is surrounding the Card star safety.
It's been what it is. You know what I mean? Nothing too much. Budda, he's still going to be here. He still is that leader. He still talks and we watch film together a little bit. And, we've just been working hard together. That's it. I'm just ready to get ready for the season.
Yeah, it was your lie detector going off there?
Beep, beep, beep. Yeah, I think Jalen's probably can't say everything, obviously, that he would like to say, but I'm sure there was a point in the offseason where Budda was like, I played my last down with you, my man. I'm heading elsewhere. Oh, maybe. Thought he was going to get traded. Thought he was going to get moved.
Do you think he honestly believed that, or he just understood that was part of trying to negotiate either a big deal or a one-way ticket out of town?
I mean, if that's true, then the agent did him a disservice. I mean, you leaked that out a week before the NFL draft, the first draft for Austin Ford and company, like Adam Schefter and everybody saying that you want to leave Arizona. I mean, that you say you want to leave, then I think you've got a foot out the door. You can say, pay me or trade me. That's a different thing. Like, hey, I've done all this for the franchise. I feel like I should be rewarded. He kind of bypassed that in terms of the public and came out and said, I want to be moved. And so to me, if you're, Jalin Thomas got paid last offseason. Mm-hmm. He's making less money than Budda, but I don't know how much guaranteed money he got, but Jalen's spot is secure. So he's probably thinking, well, Jalin, I got to do what's best for me. But we're going to see Budda Baker, I think, next week. I think he's going to be at mandatory camp next week.
So we've got one more round of OTAs next week. Yeah. And then
is it mandatory?
No, mandatory is the 13th through the
12th
through the 15th. Yeah.
I think we're going to see Budda Baker in the month of June.
Yeah. He told Cam Cox that much. So yeah. I think people are gearing up for it in the return of Budda Baker, and I think that's going to be something. It should be celebrated. If he comes back and he's the model employee once again, and he continues to be the heart and soul, I think there is a path to forgiveness here with Budda Baker. It certainly is, right? he's a competitor, and he was trying to create leverage. I mean, it's I don't chalk it up as the same as when Pat Pete was the one when he was calling and asking for his exit out of the Valley.
Yeah, very different scenarios. We do, though. We need to we're going to do a draft tracker this fall. We need a uniform tracker for what we feel like is a safe uniform for fans of this team to buy, like a uniform hierarchy. Yeah, because a lot of people have been messaging us, Bo. I don't know if people know this in the chat. Like, Johnny, what jersey is safe? Bo, what jersey is safe to buy with this team? Well, you can cross Dhop off that list. You know, I would say Kyler's still pretty safe right now. Is Budda safe? Well, maybe for a calendar year, but just be prepared. You buy a jersey this year that it could go out of vogue, not in vogue by 2024. This podcast is always in vogue. Check us out. Become a diehard. Go PHNX.
Custom jersey. It's always going to be in vogue.
Yeah, that would be something. What if me walking around BetMGM with a custom venerable jersey? I'd be the biggest nerd there. You can pour your Four Peaks over my head if that happens. I got what, a 69 jersey with Johnny B on the back. That'd be a rough look. What's not a rough look? This gear at GoPHNX.com, the merchandise locker. I've got my Hollywood tee on right now. Bo's got the hat. We're going to be live at BetMGM tomorrow, manana, to put a bow on this week. Bo Brock, Johnny Venerable, like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star wherever you get your podcast. Hell of a day for PHNX Sports. We'll see you tomorrow.